Good evening. I bet most of you sports fans have perused ESPN and on a Saturday have come across the unlikely game of rugby. What may appear as the brutal backwards game of football without pads is actually a technical game that takes years to master. Tonight I'm going to break down the ins and outs of the game in an attempt to help you guys understand one of my favorite sports and possibly recruit future ruggers. As the legend goes, William Webb Ellis, a clergyman at the rugby school, defiantly picked up a football and began to run with it, establishing the game of rugby. Here are some of the basic rules of the game. The ball cannot be passed forward. This is one of the major rules. The player must pass the ball backwards to his teammates while moving forward. A forward progress of the player carrying the ball may be impeded by tackling that player. Once a player is tackled, he must immediately pass or release the ball and move away from it. Back to another of the basic rules. The game is played with two teams, each consisting of 15 players. Each team can carry, pass, or kick the ball to the try zone to score as many points as possible. The team scoring the greater number of tries is the winner of the match. There are tries instead of touchdowns like in football. A try is scored when a player touches the ball to the ground in the opponent's end goal. The team is then awarded 5 points. After a try is scored, the team is given the opportunity to score a goal by kicking the ball over the opponent's crossbar and in between the goalposts, scoring an additional 2 points, also known as conversion points. The conversion is set up directly lined up to where the try was placed. Therefore, the goal of the person who has scored is to center the try closest to the goal posts. The game of rugby is played with two 40-minute halves with a 5-minute halftime. The field is 100 meters long and 70 meters wide with a small dead ball area of 10 meters. The rugby field looks a lot like a football field. One sir controls the match with the assistance of 2 judges. There are no timeouts, except at the sir's discretion, where he can allow 1 minute for an injured player to decide whether or not to continue a play. Players are not allowed to leave the field and come back unless they are bleeding. If a player does leave the field due to a bleeding injury, he or she has 10 minutes to return due to the injury, or will be permanently replaced. Each team is only allowed 7 substitutions per game. 6 of the subs are at the team's discretion, and the 7th is strictly for an injury. Now for the positions. There are 2 types of players on a rugby field. First are the forwards. The forwards are the loose head prop, the hooker, the tight head prop, second row lock, and there are 2 of these, a blindside flanker, an open side flanker, and the 8-man. For the backs, you have the scrum half, fly half, left wing, inside center, outside center, right wing, and the fullback. The forwards tend to be larger and the heavyweights of the team, and they do a lot of the pushing, pulling, and scrambling and use their weight and strength to win possession of the ball. The backs tend to be smaller, quicker players who use their speed to move the ball to score the tries, but all positions can score. Now for tackling. The defending team can tackle a player above shoulder height, then pull them to the ground. A tackle made above the shoulder, around the neck, or head will result in a foul, either a yellow card or a red card if the player has previously been warned, and this happens a lot. Only the ball carried must be tackled by an opposing player. The ball carrier must release the ball when they are tackled to the ground. And now for rucks. This is a lot what you see during a rugby match. A ruck is formed when the ball and player are on the ground and 1 or more players from each team who are on their feet close around it. Players in the ruck do not handle the ball. They are strictly defensive players at this point. The goal is to use their strength to push the other team past the gait of the player on the ground so the team can handle the ball. The gait is formed while the player who is tackled is on the ground. The gait is the length of the body of the player's body. The goal of the player on the ground is to make their gait as small as possible, so the opposing team has as little room as possible to push through. We worked on these a lot in practice. Once the team who has won the ruck has passed through the gate, a player can pick up the ball and run or pass the ball backwards. A maul. This doesn't happen quite as much. When a player is on 2 feet and has not been tackled but has not gained any yardage because 2 or more defensive players holds on or binds on to them, the sir calls a maul. The ball must be off the ground. The team in possession of the ball can attempt to gain positive yards and then pass the ball back into play, but mostly these end in the sir calling a timeout. Lineouts. When the ball goes out of bounds, up to 7 players can enter a lineout. The hooker throws the ball in, either in the air or directly to players on the ground. Any of these players can be lifted, both offensive or defensive, in order to catch the ball being thrown in. Usually a lighter forward will be lifted by a prop or other forward. The remaining players must remain behind the ball line. If not, they will be called offsides. This is another call that the sirs call a lot, offsides. So the culture of rugby is a very rough sport, but players become like family members. After games, there are rugby socials. Although drinking is not part of the game, it is very much part of the culture. There are rugby songs and chants, and if you mess up one of the chants, you have to shoot the boot. Shooting the boot means drinking beer out of the shoe of the man of the match. There are a lot of injuries, so keeping shape is also part of the culture. Icing your injuries, taking ice baths, doing physical therapy, and seeing a chiropractor is huge. Most importantly, rugby believes in leaving the game on the field. This is why rugby has been able to withstand political interference through the years. Players are able to beat the snot out of each other for 80 minutes and then drink together like brothers or sisters. Lastly, and probably most important, if you hear someone say, "Saturday is a rugby day," be prepared to watch an intense game and party like there's no tomorrow.